of the heart flows the issues of life. And many of these issues stem from one's emotional, mental, and spiritual condition. Such issues may oppress, stifle, and even stagnate one from living a healthy and fulfilling life. So how does one progress past such issues and achieve a state of emotional, mental, and spiritual healing? There's help, so open your heart and prepare your mind. It's time for healing to take place in your life. You're in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, a holistic approach to emotional healing. And now, your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell.
It's just me and you. I feel so lost, 'cause I don't know what to do.
Well, good Sunday morning. Thank you so much for tuning in to Talking with Dr. Toy. Comes your way every Sunday. You know what I always want to say? I always want to start off with my purpose. My purpose is to provide a holistic approach to emotional healing. Therefore, my mission is to provide a holistic and restorative therapeutic approach in addressing and resolving issues that adversely affect the emotional, psychological, spiritual, and physical well-being of individuals who desire to enhance their quality of life. You know, I think that's such a key phrase there, right? Individuals who desire to enhance their quality of life. What that entails is investment. That you see and recognize the value and worth that you have as an individual, not based on what you do, but just simply who you are, right? Just simply who you are, and knowing that that worth and value is an investment, which entails investing in yourself, right? And that's what I see this as, an opportunity for you to invest in yourself and really connect with that aspect of I am valuable and of worth to have a good quality of life. And that doesn't mean that we're going to live a life free of adversity or trials or things of that nature. Doesn't mean that in this life, we are going to have trouble. But here's the thing, that I am of worth and of value to invest in myself, to enhance my quality of life. And so I do hope that you see that as an investment, a good investment, right? And as we continue to process and really talk through what I'm going to address today, I want you to keep that in mind. I think that's something that we want to anchor in, right? What are some of the things that can help me enhance the quality of my life? Now, some of us may be in this space where we may have in some ways just really kind of reconcile that this is the way it's going to be. Now, I know sometimes we say that phrase, it is what it is, right? But I also want to encourage us that although we may say that phrase, it is what it is, I also want us to recognize too that we can also say this phrase, that even though right now it is what it is, does it have to remain this way, right? Also, that phrase, it may not have to remain this way. And I think that's where this circle of control can really help us. And we're going to delve in that a little bit more today. This is where that circle of control can really help us, because in essence, it can be empowering to the degree that I may not be able to change some aspects of my situation, of some of the things, but there may be some things that I can. And even though this is the way that we say it is what it is, the question may be, but does it have to remain this way? Does it have to remain this way? And what are the areas where I can exert some influence? We're going to talk about that today. And so as we talk about that, listen, you are worth it. You are of value to to desire and to do the things that will enhance your quality of life. And how we start that off with is what? Our self-care check. How are you? And what did you do for self-care? What are you doing for self-care? How are you investing in you? And you are worth the investment. You are the return on your investment, right? So I'm encouraging you to definitely grab hold of that and anchor in that. That's going to continue to put fuel in your tank to fill your cup. And what do we talk about? Again, doesn't have to be huge. How do we define self-care? Is not my definition, but I do like it. The practice of taking an active role in protecting our own well-being and happiness. Yes, okay? And those things, as we talked about before, they don't have to be huge, but it's a practice, and you are taking an intentional and active role in doing that. And this concept of community care, right? The power of collective caring really means people committed to leveraging their privilege to be there for one another in various ways. And here's the question. How did you show up for others, and how did you allow others to show up for you? Just really being able to lean in when it's necessary. I was talking to someone today, and sometimes we perceive us leaning in that we are burdened. We're like, I don't want to be a burden on someone. But the Bible tells us, right, that we are to bear one another's burdens, those things that are impacting us. And that's really a beautiful aspect of community, right? That we show up for each other, right? And we allow others to show up for us. Just really having that balance of self-care and community care can really, help us to enhance the quality of our lives. And also too, just kind of adding and throwing this in here, this concept of self-awareness, taking space and taking a break in order to become more self-aware, right? Really being able to see our own values and passions and aspirations. And that includes, right, our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, our strengths and our weaknesses, and how we impact others. I think this is so very important, especially in relationships, right? And so what does this take? This takes reflection. It really takes us just taking a pause, being able to connect. And I know sometimes when we live in a world where we're constantly maybe doing something, or maybe in some ways in survival mode, we don't take the pauses that are necessary to really cultivate just an evaluation or an assessment of where we are. You know, how are we really doing? And that's what this is. That's what I'm just asking you to do, is take a moment to assess, how am I? How am I doing? And what am I feeling? What am I experiencing? And what's been the impact of this week, right? How I've been impacted this week. How I've been impacted this week about the news. All those things are really helpful in cultivating and optimizing our quality of living. And so another aspect that I've been talking about this was as far as last week. I started last week, and I think I'm going to conclude it this week. But this circle of control. Yes. And another name, circle of influence, right? We talked about how it helps individuals focus on areas where they can impact or affect change. And that in turn enhances our sense of empowerment, and also can reduce stress. And we talked about this, that in some ways we have to be, I ain't gonna say have to be, I'm encouraging us to embrace this radical concept sometimes of, you know what? Accepting the idea that I simply cannot control everything that's happening in my life. There's some things that I do not control, that I cannot control. And really embracing that concept. And sometimes it may be a hard pill to swallow, but just as in the movie with Mary Poppins, just a spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Well, here's our spoonful of sugar. Our spoonful of sugar is this, is that when I am able to connect and really radically accept that there are things that are simply out of my control. And sometimes rather than that, it may induce some anxiety, but also too, it can be liberating, right? It can be liberating because what that spoonful full of sugar is, it says this, is that I can feel more empowered connecting with things that are within my sphere of influence than trying to control things that are trying to really have control over things that are simply outside of my control. It can help us to let go of anxiety. It can help us it can be a reduction of stress because I can actually focus on things that are within my sphere of influence, right? So that can be empowering. That's a spoonful of sugar that may help this medicine go down of me not being in control of everything. And as we talked about before, that can come from a place of trauma. When things happen that were not within my control, then I made a vow that I'm going to start controlling things right now, right? So let's give some examples, right? Let's give some examples of things that are within our control. I love this little graphic that I found. I love it. Now, here's some examples of what is within your control. Listen. I can control, right, choices I make, right? Those are some things that I can control. I can control the choices I make. Now, here's the thing. If you are a child or an adolescent in some ways, of course, there's going to be some power dynamics there, right? So you may not be able to control some choices that you make, especially if you're a child or you're a young or your youth. May not be able to. Your parents may control that, but in some ways, your parents are not with you 24/7, and so we make choices every day. And so this is one of the things that you may want to just consider. I can control the choices that I make, right? I can control, and this is something that we've been talking about just now, taking care of myself. Now, here's even when I say that, I can sense some people where I really don't have control of taking care of myself. Why? Because, right now, maybe I'm not able to take control of myself, take care of myself. Maybe right now I am a bit dependent on others. And that is sometimes a difficult position to be in. But I do want you to see this as something that is, even though it may feel like, man, I hate to be helpless and I hate to have people take care of me. My thing is too, that you are so worth it, that there are people that are willing and able to help take care of you. And sometimes I know we get into this space of, well, I don't know how to, there's nothing I can give in return. I'm going to be honest. Sometimes what we give in return doesn't have to be materialistic. It can just be, thank you. I'm so grateful. Thank you. It reminds me of the Bible passage when Jesus heals the 10 lepers and only one comes back and says, thank you. And then Jesus notices this. Well, I healed 10 of you. Where are the other 9? The other 9 didn't come back, but this one came back. And simply because that is in the Bible, that is of significance. That just saying thank you, I appreciate you, that can go a long way, right? And those of you who are, maybe in that aspect of taking care of yourself, you may be saying, but I have so many other things to do, right? I have so many other people that I have to take care of. Where am I going to find the time? And here's the thing. Choice. there's a choice. Can I find 15 minutes in a day to take care of myself, to sit down somewhere, to rest, to make sure that in some ways that maybe there may be some things that may go undone to some degree, may not be done perfectly, but to say that I'm trying to get trying to get enough sleep, just some things that you want to think of, right? That are within your circle of influence and control. I love this. My attitude. Yeah. Not saying, yeah, people will trigger us. Yeah, people will trigger us. However, but we still have we have influence on our attitude and how we perceive that. But I do want to, put this, just kind of insert this as well. Some of your attitude may be impacted by your mood, because depression, anxiety, all of these things can impact our mood. Thus, they can inform some aspects of our attitude. So that's why it's so important to engage in these self-care checks. Am I experiencing some depression? Am I experiencing some anxiety? Because maybe if I am, that is affecting my mood, that I'm just seeing negative things, right? It's hard for me to see the positive things, and that may be connected to mood and things that may be going on with my mood. Some things that I can control, my beliefs. Now, some of us, we may not know that how we think about things and our actions and our behaviors, they may stem from some core beliefs that we have about ourselves and others. Now, I do think that some of these core beliefs may be, we may not be consciously aware of some of those beliefs. But if you have a belief that, let me think of something. If I have a belief that I don't matter, right? Some of that may have been informed by how you were treated and all this. But if I have a belief that I don't matter, then how we enter into relationships, that belief is going to inform our thought process. So when you're in relationship with someone and you have this belief about yourself that I don't matter, then you may think, because I don't matter, they don't care about me. They don't care about me, right? And so if I have that thought that they don't care about me, that can definitely induce maybe some sadness, some anger, some hurt. And then how does that impact my behavior? Well, I just won't be around them. And I'm not saying that I'm not saying that there are not individuals who don't care about you. I'm not saying that, but I think sometimes what happens is some of our core beliefs may inform that where we think everybody is like that. So there could be some people in your life that really do care for you. They're not perfect, but they really do care for you. But if that belief permeates your system, then you will, in essence, respond in that way. And being able to say, you know what, maybe I need to shift that belief. I do matter, right? I do matter. And so again, things that we can control, right? Within our sphere of influence. What's some other things within our sphere of influence? My words. Ooh, that's a good one. I think in some ways that's why we've been charged with being slow to speak. Because that tongue, come on now. That can be, someone said it earlier this week, that tongue can be a weapon. And many of us, that maybe, we may be okay with that. It helps to protect me. My tongue helps to protect me. And, it may. But here's the thing, though. Words do hurt. Words do hurt. And words can damage relationships. Words can hurt and damage not only relationships, it can damage self-esteem. It can damage. Words are powerful. And those are things that you can control. Because here's the thing. Some of us may say, well, that's just who I am. But really, maybe that's who you've become because of what has happened to you. Right? But that may not be your authentic self. That could be your protective, in essence, your protectors. Holy up to do battle when in some ways, is there a war going on? But maybe because your life has been like that, it's always a war. You always perceive that you're being attacked, and then we use our tongue, use that weapon. And it brings life to that passage of scripture where power, life and death are in the power of the tongue. But we can manage that, but we need to kind of understand, where does that come from? Where does that sharp tongue come from? Why am I responding the way that I'm responding? That takes, again, work, that self-care, that self-awareness. But we do have some sphere of influence over the words that we say. What else? My actions. I have influence over my actions. Love that. I love this one. Learning from my mistakes. Notice, and I want you to notice here, within that sphere of influence, within the things that we can control, it didn't say I could control making mistakes. Notice that, right? Now, this is for my perfectionist, my perfectionist, right? And we know that comes from a place. But learning from mistakes, that's within our control. But what outside our control is making mistakes. We are going to make mistakes. Why? Great question. Because we are imperfect people. Because of our humanity. Yes, we can't get under it. We can't get around it. We can't get over it. Our humanity is imperfect. We're finite. So guess what? We're going to make mistakes. Sometimes we stay in that space and we continue to beat ourselves up, and what happens is that we become ashamed and all of these things, and that shame beats us down. But there are some aspects where we cannot control. We're going to make some mistakes. However, what's within our control is learning from those mistakes, right? What lessons were learned so that I can, again, may not do it again, right? What did I learn from that? That is within our control. And so anytime, especially for my perfectionists, we make mistakes. I want you to, I would love for you to say this. Okay, but what's within my control is learning from that mistake. How can I learn from that? Right? How can I learn from that? And making sure that I cultivate and extend compassion and grace. Ooh, I love this one. What's another thing that's within my control? Asking for help. Ooh, wee. That's a huge one because, we don't need to. And I think I have in other podcasts just kind of unpacked the baggage around that, where many of us struggle asking for help, right? Going back to that concept of community help, when allowing others to show up for us. Sometimes it's hard for us to ask for help because we see it as a weakness, as a vulnerability, and we're ashamed. And that is nothing to be ashamed of. We need help. We need help. Some of us are scared because we are fearful that others won't show up for us. So we don't ask because we're fearful that they won't show up and we're experiencing some rejection, right? These are things that are within our control, asking for help. And if you struggle with that, understand why. Understand why you're struggling with that. But then also, too, How can we make steps to lean in, right? Because that's some of the aspects of the Bible as far as our relationship with God. I will look to the hills from which cometh my help, right? My help comes from so asking for help is a huge part of our sphere of influence. What else can I control? My effort. I love this. Yes, my effort. I can control my effort. I can manage my effort. I have a sphere of influence of my effort. Sometimes, listen, I can put in the effort, but sometimes, you know what? I may not be able to control the outcome. I can put in the effort of trying to cultivate a healthy relationship with people, right? That's my sphere of influence. But sometimes the outcome is not within my control. There may be some people who may not be, willing to invest in the relationship, and I cannot control their effort. I can't manage their effort. I can only manage mine. But then it goes back to, and I can also manage my choices. Because maybe at that point, I do have a choice to make. That if there is a lack of reciprocity and all the things in this relationship and the person is not showing effort and all of these things, then I may need to make a choice. Right? And that is within my sphere of influence, me being able to make a choice. But also know that I have sphere of influence with regards to my effort. Again, what are some things that I can also manage? My opinions. Yes. And listen, what can't I imagine? What can't I manage or have, maybe have influence? Others' opinions. Yeah, we're going to talk about that. So maybe I need to do another podcast of what's outside of our control. Okay. I'm seeing the need to do that. Okay. But within my control and manage are my opinions. Right? And so as we navigate that I need to be really aware of the opinions that I form. But again, how am I empowered to do that? Making sure that I know why I have those opinions, but those are things that I can manage. So sometimes we may have opinions about others. We may judge others in some ways, and sometimes we can unfairly judge others based on our own issues or anything like that. But you can manage that. You have some sphere of influence over that. But being able to pause long enough to reflect and process that. And here's another one I like too. Where I direct my energy. Oh my. I love this. This is what we're talking about, right? Within this circle of control, focus your energy on things you can control. You have, right? Sphere of influence. You have influence and you can control where you direct your energy. Now, listen, I know that there's situations that take place where you're like, well, they need me here and they need me there. Yes, I am saying life is lifing, all of those things. And you still have some choice of where I expend my energy, right? So expending our energy on things that we can control, right? There may be some things that you cannot control with regards to your time. But there are some things that you can control with your time, right? And for some reason I'm kind of like honing in on relationships, right? And one of these things is this: the power of saying no. The power of implementing appropriate boundaries, right? because some of us, we overextend ourselves. So we overextend ourselves to such a degree that we're expending energy on everyone and everything else. And we're neglecting our health. We're neglecting our well-being. And some of it is because maybe I don't want them to reject me, right? Beginning to understand some of the nuances behind your behavior, that can help you. That can help you to direct your energy in places that are going to be meaningful for you. And so that's one of the areas, that's just an example. Being mindful of where you direct your energy. You do have some choice with regards to that, especially if you are noticing that you're overextending yourself, that you're having problems or just struggles with saying no and all of these things. Yes, there are things that we want to say yes to, of course. But there may be some things that we need to say no to. We may be expending our energy in ways that is exhausting us and we're not filling our cup. Listen, I love this phrase. It says this: spending our mental energy wisely is of great importance, especially for those of us who are prone to anxiety, worry, ruminating, and those who are exhausted. This circle of control or influence, I do think, can help to improve some aspects of your life. And it is possible. Well, listen, that's all that I have time for today. Yes, I will do another. Yes, I think I need to do another podcast where we talk about things that are, and I love how this resource frames this circle of concern, but are not within our circle of control. There's things that we're concerned about, but we don't have control over, and may get a little bit, okay, I'll do another broadcast about that because I think that's important too, right? But all right. In the meantime, listen, as I always say, relentlessly and intentionally pursue authentic and genuine relationships vertically with God, horizontally with others, and inwardly with yourself. Maintain and sustain a keen sense of awareness and ongoing discovery about self as well as others. Take good care of you and engage in things that are helpful for your mind, body, soul, and spirit. And remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it and continue our journey towards emotional healing. Until next time, bye-bye.
You've been in tuned to Talking with Dr. Toy, providing a holistic approach to emotional healing with your host, licensed professional counselor, Dr. Toy Lisa Mitchell. Please connect with me at talkingwithdrtoy.com or Facebook at Talking with Dr. Toy or email talkingwithdrtoy@gmail.com. I would love to hear your story and hear your heart regarding the issues of life you may be experiencing. Remember, out of the heart flows the issues of life. Let's continue to talk about it. I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks for listening, and please join me next week for Talking with Dr. Toy.